Hello again and welcome to another Mordy and Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's video, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite big group of big lovable potato skin eaters, the Ogryn. No, I'm not talking about Bulgryn, I'm talking about Ogryn. And see, that's the thing, isn't it? Ogryns always seem to be overshadowed by their big slab shield wielding cousins. But things are changing. The Bulgryns have had a nerf recently, and the Ogryns, well, are looking kind of tasty. So the big question is Ogryn back on the menu, boys? There's only one way to find out. Let's heft our ripper guns and charge right into today's episode. Let us begin with a brief reminder of the Ogryn datasheet. Each Ogryn comes with a movement of 6, a toughness of 6, which is double that of your standard guardsman, a 5+ save, 3 wounds, leadership 7, and OC 1. For their range weapons, they get the Ripper Gun, which has an 18-inch range, which fires 3 shots at ballistic skill 4+, strength 5, AP -1, damage 2. For all intents and purposes, it's an 18-inch heavy bolter. But it also has rapid fire 3, which means within 9 inches, you are getting 6 heavy bolter shots per Ogryn. Ogryn can be taken in squads of 3 to 6, so there is the potential for a lot of Daka, but they're also not too bad in close combat. They can use their Ripper Guns as a melee weapon, and if they do so, they get 4 attacks each at weapon skill 3+, which is quite nice, strength 6, AP -1, but only 1 damage. So essentially in melee, you get the extra pip of strength, but you do lose a pip of damage. For their abilities, they get a 6+ feel no pain, which on a 3 wound model is actually quite significant because you just need to make one of those 6 up if someone hits you with an autocannon or a battle cannon, and suddenly it's going to take an extra heavy shot to bring down that big lad. You also have their unique ability, which is Point Blank Barrage, which gives them an extra pip of AP if they shoot the nearest enemy target. As their points cost, they are 65 points for 3 or 130 points for 6 of them. And let's just consider that big chunky squad for a moment, because I believe that Ogryns are best when they are taken in units of 6. Because they're not that durable, relying on their innate toughness 6 to withstand a lot of damage, the 5+ save and the 6 of feel no pain are alright, but it doesn't take that much to clear away a unit of 3 Ogryns. But 6 of them, well, that's a big old slab of muscle. That's more chances for those feel no pains to pop up. That's more chances for your opponent to have to put extra firepower into the unit to finish them off. And really, the opponent has to finish them off, because even a handful, even just 2 or 3 Ogryn that are left alive do have the firepower to actually be a significant threat. No one wants to get hit by up to 18 heavy bolter shots from a 3-man squad, or 36 heavy bolter shots from an intact 6-man unit. And 130 points, the equivalent of 12 heavy bolters, is really nice. If you tried to emulate that with guard heavy weapon teams with bolters, you would only be able to get 2 squads of heavy weapon teams, and that would only give you 6 heavy bolters, and they would have to stay still in order to hit you on 4s. Or if they moved, they'd have to receive take aim for them to hit on 4s. Whereas Ogre just running around, rocking, hitting on a 4+. And when you're hitting on a 4+ with that many shots, and those shots aren't like lasgun bolts, they're actually got some punch behind them, hitting on 4s isn't so bad. It's not great, of course we'd rather hit on 3s, but I think we have to acknowledge the fact that Ogryns are going to be low down the priority order for your Lord Soldier's limited orders, because he's the only one that can boss them around. So hitting on 4s isn't bad when you're going to get potentially 18 hits of strength 5, AP -1, damage 2. These guys are going to clear away a squad of Space Marines easy peasy, no problem whatsoever. And those Space Marines aren't that much cheaper than them. You have units of sort of 5 marine or marine equivalent. I'm thinking things like Death Guard Marines, or you've got some of the like Space Marines. Like I think they're infiltrators. It costs like 100 points or something. I mean, they do a 12-inch deep strike, but it's pretty expensive. For not that much cheaper, you've got Unit of Ogryns that just go around and just bully the crap out of them without really breaking a sweat. And all of this has just been looking at them through the lens of their range capability. And I do think that's probably where they shine, but I don't think it can be underestimated their combat punch as well. I think taken separately, you look at the Ripper guns and then you look at the melee, you might think, oh, well, they've not got quite enough damage to deal with everything on the shooting, and they've not got quite enough melee to deal with everything on the melee. But I don't think that's what you want to be using Ogryns for. I think you want to be combining the two. I think Ogryns shine the most. They really, and this is someone who's used them recently at a tournament, and every single game that I played, my opponents came away with and went, wow, those Ogryns really took me by surprise. What it was the fact that my Ogryns would deliver a volley and then charge in and finish things off. And the Ogryns' durability wasn't such a problem in these tournament games because, and I was able to get the full 6-man squad pretty much where I wanted it every single time, because I play in a lot of tournaments, and tournaments have very dense terrain. This is the thing, people look at Ogryn and they think, oh, well, they're just going to die before they get there. Well, that's not true. It's very easy just between their regular move outs. You don't even need an order for them, just their regular move and advance roll for them to just hop from one ruin to the next. You keep them behind the main front line, they're a second line unit, and your opponent comes slamming into a unit of guardsmen, kills most of them, the survivors fall back or you reinforce them if there are no survivors, and then when it comes to your counterpunch, you're going to jump out from behind the L-shaped ruin, unleash a blistering volley of Ripper gun shots, and then if the enemy does survive, because you're only hitting on 4s, you can go in there and bludgeon into either death or combat ineffectiveness, because there's not many left, whatever's left over, with, well, 24 strength 6 AP-1 shots. I mean, a full strength Ogryn unit is putting out 60 attacks between range and shooting in one turn. That's not bad at all. And all of those attacks are either strength 5 AP1 AP2, because you're targeting the nearest thing, strength 5 AP2 damage 2, or strength 6 AP1 damage 1. So there's enough volume there to really get them across the line, and this is before they even have an order. So just looking at Ogryn in isolation, can they stand on their own 2 feet? I believe they can. I think they, on their own merit, bring enough to the table to be justified in including them in your army list. Do I think that Ogryn spam meta is coming? Not at all. Do I think they're going to suddenly reshape the meta and be competitive and start storming up to super major wins? Not at all. What I think is that Ogryns are now at that point where they are a unit you can put in your army and they don't hold you back. They're not actively handicapping your force. They're cheap and they bring enough to the table where you can get them to do something, but if they die, it doesn't really matter because they're fairly cheap. But let's not look at Ogryn in isolation. Now let's bring in their main competitor, the Bullgrin. Now, Bullgrin have been a guard favourite in 10th edition for pretty much since the beginning of it because they're durable. They have a 4% vulnerable save, and this allows them to really just tank a lot of punches to the head. However, they recently went up in points, and now it's 190 points for a unit of Bullgrin in comparison to 130 points for a unit of Ogryn. And 190 points, that's a 60 point difference straight away, and 60 points is a lot in the guard. 60 points generally can get you a whole extra unit. We're talking scout sentinels, we're talking extra officers, we're talking heavy weapon squads. You can get a lot for 60 points. So the point savings are very, very attractive, and that does start making me want to lean towards those Ogryn, considering that when it comes to their intended targets, what they can take on, they're pretty much the same. Your Bullgrin are not, well, as much as people want them to be, they're not combat specialists. I describe them as bullies. If a unit of Bullgrin goes up against an enemy combat specialist unit, they typically lose. It might take them a couple of turns to lose, but they typically lose. And this is because the Bullgrin are only AP -1, and they're only damaged like 2. And they can't really soften the enemy up before going into that combat, so they have to get into the straight up slugging match. And even just normal things like Terminators or Custodians, a very normal combat sort of elite unit, is going to sweep the Bullgrin aside. I recently had a unit of Plague Marines beat a unit of Bullgrin in combat. Plague Marines aren't even that specialist in close combat. Plague Marines are very, very good, and they can Barney in combat if they need to. No, what Bullgrins like to do is beat down on non-combat units. They want to go after like Space Marines, want to go after light infantry, the equivalent, things that they can wound on 2s, and their AP -1 and damage 2 will be enough to carry the day. And when the opponent is hitting back at them and maybe wounding them on 5s or 6s, that's what your Bullgrins are good at killing. And in this regard, Ogryns are just as capable as Bullgrins, but are significantly cheaper. Because your Ogryns, like I said, you don't look at them just at their shooting or their melee. If you compare the Ripper Gun melee to the Bullgrin Maul, of course you're going to be disappointed. It's got less strength, it's got less damage. But you're not looking at the 1. You're looking at the 2. You're looking at the double doozy. You're looking at giving them a volley and then going in. And in that regard, the Ogryn actually had the potential for much more damage output because they've got more attacks, and they get more attacks than the Bullgrin do at damage 2. Because the Bullgrin are going to get their 24 damage 2 attacks, and the Ogryn are going to, yes, admittedly, hitting on 3s, but the Ogryn are going to get their 36 damage 2 attacks, admittedly hitting on 4s. So if we look at this, and this is very roughly off the top of my head, you've got 24 attacks hitting on 3, so you're looking at 16 hits from the Bullgrin Mauls at damage 2. The Ogryn, you're looking at 18. And then on top of that, you're looking at 24 melee attacks, which are going to have 16 hits there. So the Ogryn, when it comes to bullying, and I do think both units prefer to bully, I don't think you want to start sending Ogryns up against tanks and stuff. That's not where they're going to shine. Ogryns are good at clearing out objectives from enemy units that are much weaker than them. And they can do it efficiently. They can do it 60 points more efficiently than the Bullgrin. However, I think it's important to recognize that people aren't just taking Bullgrin for their damage output. They're actually taking them for the punch that they can take. And in this regard, they do exceed Ogryns significantly. They have the -1 damage, they keep the feel no pain, and they're typically going to have a 4+ invulnerable save as well, which makes a huge difference. Really, really big difference. It means that suddenly things which have got significant AP can just be bounced, and if those 4-up saves start spiking, it can be a real spanner in your opponent's works. And the only way that Ogryn might be able to compete in this regard is through sheer wound count. I mean, at the end of the day, you can almost get, I think, 10 points different, but you can almost get 3 units of Ogryn, 18 Ogryn, the cost of 12 Bullgrin. And people will turn up with 12 Bullgrin. They will turn up with 2 big squads of them, or a big squad and 2 little squads. So the Ogryn can get an additional 18 wounds on the table. I guess the big question is, do we think that the extra 18 wounds with that 6 of feel no pain is equivalent to the 4-up and the -1 damage? And also, you've got the real world cost of actually building and painting that many Ogryn, which is not a factor that should be disregarded or overlooked. To be honest, I think comparing Ogryn and Bullgrin in this way is a little bit incorrect. It's not the right way of analysing the units, because I would say that Ogryn are really good. They're cheap and they've got good damage output, and that's why you would put them in your list. You want the ability to storm an enemy objective and bully the crap out of them for a cheap price point. That's what they can do for you. But if you want a unit that's very, very durable, then you're not looking at Ogryn. Instead, you're going to look at Bullgrin. So they do two very different things on the tabletop. And when asking the question, are Ogryn back on the menu, or should I stick with Bullgrin? Which of these 2 units should I take? It doesn't actually come down to those units. It comes down to what else is in your army list. If you have an army that has plenty of durability already, perhaps you are taking Mechanized Guard and all of your infantry are safely protected inside metal boxes like the Chimera. Well, in that situation, you don't need Bulgrin. You've got durability covered. Your infantry is safe for the enemy to get to your objective control and to get to your main battle tanks. They're going to have to go through a wall of chimeras. But on the flip side, if durability is not something that you have, perhaps you're not taking Deathcore Krieg infantry in big blobs, perhaps you're not taking mechanized guard, maybe your infantry consists of Cadians or infantry squads or Kashchans, things which are actually quite fragile and can be cleared away. And if an enemy assault unit goes into them, you won't hold them, they'll just get overrun inside of a turn, and that's not good. If you're lacking that ability to just say no to your opponent and just go, I'm going to make a wall here, I'm going to make a stand, then that is when you would include Bulgrin in your army, because you need something that can just be the brick wall. But coming back to Ogryn, the main focus of the video, what are they doing? What are they bringing to the table? What are they fixing for your list? What are they adding to your overall capability? But it might sound strange, but I think it's indirect fire. I know, but bear with me. Traditionally, when an enemy unit is hidden out of line of sight from the guard, the way we've dealt with it is by leveraging crap loads of manticores and basilisks onto them to clear them away. But that's not really possible for a lot of armies anymore. With manticores and basilisks and just everything in the artillery corps going up ridiculously over the course of 10th edition, a lot of people are just leaving the basilisks and the manticores at home now. They're just not worth it. And so another way of dealing with these units that are hiding behind line of sight is pseudo indirect fire. And there's two forms of pseudo indirect fire in the guard. You've got deep striking. This is where your scions can come in, but sometimes your opponent's got really good screening and you can't get the angles with your scions. This is where the Ogryns come in. If your opponent is hiding behind an L-shaped ruin and they're camping on an objective and they're getting that steady source of primary and you need to deal with them, but you know that throwing a garrison squad in there isn't going to cut it. You know that you don't have the push on your infantry to take that objective, and you know you don't have the indirect fire, and you know that your scions aren't going to be able to deep strike down, maybe just playing on a really dense board like WTC terrain. Well, Ogryns have got you covered, because the Ogryns can go in there cheaply and they can clear that objective. And if they have line of sight, they'll clear it at range. If they don't have line of sight, they have enough volume in their attacks in combat to clear away that unit that's hiding behind the objective. They'll be able to go in there and take and storm and hold that objective. Now, this video has been covering lots of different things today, so let's bring it back into focus and boil it down. Let's summarize our points. To answer the question, do we think that Ogryn are back on the menu? Absolutely yes. They're very cheap. They've got good damage output for what you pay for them. They're also pretty damn disposable. Should Ogryn and Bulgrin be compared? Probably not. Bulgrin do a very specific role of taking a hit to the face, and Ogryn do a very specific role of adding cheap combat capability to your army, which can be essential in these days of artillery drought and very dense terrain. Overall, Bulgrin and Ogryn are both viable units, but they should only be included if you have a game plan for them and you have a problem that needs a specific solution. Of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you think that Ogryn have a place now that artillery and also Bulgrin have taken a lot of points nerfs? Or do you think that Ogryn still just don't bring enough and going for those traditional solutions is still worth the increased points cap? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure, and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and Patreons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Wolf, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.